The Contest. Starring B.F. Skinner, Erick Erickson, Jean Piaget, Lawrence Goldberg, Lev Vygotsky, Sigmund Freud. Once upon a time, B.F. Skinner found an app called Class Dojo. He soon realized that it incorporated aspects of his own theory which made him very proud of himself. This inspired him to inspire others. This app provides children with feedback based on their day-to-day behavior at school. Teachers are able to reward children with points for good behavior and take away points for bad behavior, he explained. The Class Dojo app recognizes that when children feel as though good behavior is appreciated, they tend to be more likely to repeat said behavior. The app also allows teachers to enforce negative reinforcement by taking away points. Information on each of the students is kept confidential between the student, teacher and parent, and therefore the app is by no means a ranking system. Children are able to see the consequences their actions have, which fundamentally children who are exposed to the app act in a manner that seeks out appreciation, which therefore results in good behavior. I have left my mark. I now challenge all of you. The contest goes as follows. 1. Over the course of the next 18 years, all participants must take care of one child until he or she is a fully grown and developed adult. 2. All participants will begin with a newborn child. 3. The objective is to prove your theory is the most accurate. 4. Each participant will present their observations at the end of the 18th year mark. 5. We will determine a winner based on the healthiest individual. Growth and development will be monitored annually. Good luck to you all, and remember to have fun. The participants were all very eager to begin. They had many ideas that they believed would help them win. Many of them even went above and beyond to prove their theory is superior. December 31, 2034 marked the long-awaited presentation day. Erick Erickson started off the presentations. My theories emphasize 6 significant stages an individual must go through in their lives: trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus doubt, initiative versus guilt, industry versus inferiority, and identity versus role confusion. I'm saddened to say that Logan did not go through all of the stages successfully. I will start off by describing trust versus mistrust. I cared for his physical needs. I fed, changed, and cuddled him as needed. I responded to all of his emotions and therefore, he learned to trust his caregiver, being me. I unfortunately got too attached and led him to fail the next stage, autonomy versus doubt. I was too controlling and did not allow for enough freedom. I felt as though he was unable to dress, feed and play by himself, and therefore I helped him out whenever it was needed, which happened to be many times. He is overly attached to me and has experienced low self-esteem. I now realize that it was because he was too dependent on me. I caught myself saying no in time for him to successfully progress through initiative versus guilt. He was able to explore his surroundings and think for himself. I believe exposure to other children during preschool also allowed for successful development at this stage. One of the things he quickly understood was the difference between right and wrong. I wasn't worried about the next stage, industry versus inferiority, because of how quickly he had developed a moral sense. I trusted that he would learn to care about others, and I was correct. He joined various clubs and teams at school, and was also the school's treasurer for a month. This achievement gave him the confidence he needed to believe in his abilities in the future. Finally, came identity versus role confusion. He has chosen a career that suits him and has a part-time job to fund his post-secondary education. I may not have won the contest, but I am proud of the individual I raised. Jean Piaget was next. He was touched by the story, but was glad that there was one less theorist he was competing with. I took care of Dylan. I observed the 4 stages that my theory is composed of throughout his life. Starting off with the sensorimotor stage. During this stage, Stefan relied on his senses to explore the world around him. One key characteristic seen in most children is their ability to understand that objects and other people exist despite our own actions. This is what I like to call object permanence. I saw this in my own son by conducting my experiment when he was 8 months. First, he was given a toy to play with. 5 minutes later, I placed the toy under a cloth and he recognized that the toy did not disappear. He lifted the blanket and continued playing. Initially, I tried to note down as many details as possible. In my observation, I also found that he developed through 6 substages of the sensorimotor stage. I will be describing the first 3. During the next 3 months, he was in the primary circular reactions stage. He began to suck his thumbs, wiggle his fingers and kick his legs. These actions are not caused by reflexes, but instead are done intentionally. Next came the secondary circular reaction substage. During this stage, he realized that some actions resulted in more pleasure than others, such as shaking his rattle. This action was therefore repeated often. The second stage, referred to as the pre-operational stage, has a few main components. From 2-7, Dylan enjoyed role-playing. He held tea parties for his stuffed animals and then checked their teeth after and loved puppets. Playing always made him hungry. He preferred drinking out of my mug than his sippy cup even though they both held 250 milliliters. I use these scenarios to demonstrate egocentric behaviors and his use of symbols to make sense of the world. My mug appeared taller, so it obviously held more, right? He believed what he saw and was ignorant to other perspectives. When a child uses imagination, they use symbols. His favorite was pots and pans as drums. Daily concepts quickly became a norm. The third stage is the concrete operational stage. During this period, Dylan had a better understanding of math and science. He didn't reach for my mug anymore because he realized his cup held the same amount. He also understood matter. "Look, Daddy," he said one afternoon while I was making tea, the water turned into a cloud. The fourth and final stage Dylan entered was the formal operational stage. He was about 11 when I first noted the changes. I tested him by asking him a simple question that I will now ask you. If given the opportunity to have a third eye, where would you want it to be? Go on, think about it. Forehead? Many 9-year-olds would agree with you. Your hand? My son at 11 would agree too, because it allows you to get into the nooks and crannies your head cannot get into. Just give me my prize now, it's obvious I won. Alright, my apologies. Not very professional of me, I'll rephrase myself. Essentially, in conclusion, my kid is, in fact, the cutest, so, therefore, I win. Not so fast, said Lawrence Goldberg. Sure, knowing things is great, but moral development is the most essential. My daughter is one of the very few who reached the greatest stage, post-conventional. She not only was able to reach the social contract and individual rights stage, which is understanding that sometimes laws do not always benefit individuals, but went a step further and was able to reach the highest stage, universal principles. She has her own set of moral guidelines which do not always fit the law. She values human rights, justice and equality over disapproval from society. Mia now acts to defend these principles and does not allow the risk of consequences to get in the way of the significant goal. You losers probably didn't even reach level 2, conventional morality. Your children probably seek approval and make decisions in order to be seen as good people. That is stage 3, good interpersonal relationships. Maybe Erick's kid is able to maintain the social order. Erick, is your kid aware of the law? Does he make decisions to avoid imprisonment? But your kid, Mr. Freud, didn't even reach individualism and exchange, the highest stage of level 1, pre-conventional morality. I bet your kid only makes decisions to avoid getting punished. I'm sure she doesn't even realize that different people can hold different views. Don't even bother Freud, I'm obviously better than you and everyone else in this building. Lev Vygotsky did not let the disrespectful of the previous participant affect him. I noticed that most people refer to their subjects as their children. This means that we have accepted the role as a parent, and therefore as parents we must support our children in every way possible. This means guiding them in order to teach them, as it's the best way for them to learn. Just because the newborn isn't ready to put together a jigsaw puzzle, doesn't mean he never will. For example, my daughter Ella, like all of our children, uses her muscle memory to eat, but with guidance, support and practice, she learned to ride a bike 5 years later. Culture, social factors, language and adults are the 4 main influencing factors that contribute to cognitive development. I am not so concerned about winning this contest as I am about spreading my message. Parents, read to your kids every night, give them the opportunity and a safe environment to better themselves so that they can learn the skills needed to survive on this planet. Last but not least, it was Sigmund Freud's turn. I was fortunate enough to take care of Anya. My love for my daughter allows me to forgive you, Goldberg. Let's start with the child in her oral phase. I noticed that she was primarily ID-driven. This simply means that she lacked the ability to consider reality and morals before making a decision. For example, I remember when she took the pacifier out of the peer's mouth one day at daycare. Oh, it was hilarious, but just goes to show how much she enjoyed having something in her mouth. Of course, she was very dependent back then. I was required for all of her physical needs. Now, however, she is neither too dependent nor too independent, as a result of success with her care. Then came the anal phase. I was moderately controlling as a caregiver, which allowed her to learn to control her urges and her behavior. This did not only apply to potty training, but also to all aspects of her life. This reminds me of the time we went to Walmart to buy some pillows. She had been asking for Monster High toys for a while. It took a lot of effort to not throw a tantrum when we passed the toy department. We were in and out in 20 minutes. It was great. I must admit that my theory about the phallic stage is flawed, as I did not consider single-parent households. I noticed that Anya did not experience the Electra complex, which involves a child's unconscious desire to eliminate the same-sex parent due to the simple fact that I raised her on my own. I have noticed that she is not reckless, narcissistic, or excessively vain, which are characteristics of a phallic individual. During the latency stage, I believed it was the perfect opportunity to introduce her to sports and encourage her to focus her effort on her education. This is when she began swim, dance and hockey lessons. At this stage, sexual drives are repressed in children, which is the primary reason it is essential to help them use that energy towards asexual activities. Like all of us, Arya is now in the genital stage. She has allowed her creativity and maturity to become an active member in society as a human rights activist in Asia. Furthermore, she will be getting married next year, which also proves that my child is the happiest and by extension, I am the best. Who won? You decide.